What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful and really fantastic, actually, Saturday evening. Have not been able to say that in quite a while. And one thing we definitely haven't been able to say in a long time, in 406 days, Florida State has come away with an ACC win. Tonight, the Seminoles took down and dominated Wake Forest all across the board. They get a win here, 42-7. The offense gets rolling. I think more importantly, this defense came to play ball. Like I said, plays were made offensively and defensively all throughout this game. But the Seminoles finally get rid of that awful streak that they had in the ACC after their bye week. And it seems like, from what Mike Norvell was telling us earlier this week, a lot more disciplined practices, a lot more energy there, a lot more enthusiasm, and you could see that all throughout the night from this team. I mean, it was an impressive performance against an incoming team of 5-2, Wake Forest, who has been playing well, always fights with teams till the very end. They really did not stand a chance going into, I would say, halftime. I think Florida State kind of set where things were held defensively, with eliminating everything that Wake Forest was trying to do offensively. But like I said, 42-7, I don't think anybody was expecting for that to happen. Almost got the shutout. Almost got the spike ball to Tony White's defense. Kind of had, you had Brock Glenn go in there and had a missed block there from one of your tackles. And, that's not on Brock Glenn. That's on your offensive lineman for allowing that guy to come over from behind you and cause that fumble, and Florida State can't recover there, and that most likely would have been a shutout. But here's Florida State's stat line, ladies and gentlemen: 421 total yards for Florida State's offense. And when we talk about offense, I think there's a handful of names, but number one, you start off with Deuce Robinson. Deuce, as we like saying. Deuce Robinson had a night, 148 yards in receiving, his 65-yard long catch. One of those also, too, being, I don't know, how do you really describe it, but dude is getting PI on him. He's got the ball coming down. He's getting held from behind, and then he makes a grab with one hand behind the defender's back. We'll probably be able to pull it up here in just a second. But he makes the grab there, which is absolutely insanity. And he also had a phenomenal grab over the middle as well in this game, and then multiple touchdowns as well all throughout this evening. Just a huge game from Deuce Robinson, who, was a USC transfer. They didn't figure out a way to utilize him over there. But right now, it seems like Gus Malzahn and certainly Tommy Castellanos, who I thought had a strong night as well, who was recovering after that Stanford hit that he took where he had to leave the game. But just a really good night from Deuce Robinson. I mean, he was an absolute animal. I thought, too, Tommy Castellanos' ball over to Mekhi Danzy in stride for that big shot there that he took to Danzy stood out to me a ton. You know who else as well? Number 28, Samuel Singleton, someone that we talk about on this show consistently a lot. And we were kind of surprised we weren't seeing more of Samuel Singleton even earlier in this season, just because of the flashes and the things that we hear from Coach Johnson, Florida State's running backs coach, and, the new staff that have been, we were hearing great things during the scrimmages, making plays. Why is he not out there on the field? And he actually ends up getting the start over Gavin Sawchuk tonight. And man, I thought the way that he's your, I want to say, they're trying to figure out what to still do with Jalen Lucas. I think that kind of dream is long gone. That's something that has always been something for Florida State. They can't figure out to use those gadget guys as much. Samuel Singleton is like a slingshot, engage, go, Ricky Bobby type, Talladega Nights, slingshot, go. When he sees the hole, he's gone. He bursts off. He flies off, and he's like a home run hitter. And you don't really have a home run hitter in the running back room. You really haven't had one. I wouldn't even say Trey Benson was one. He was just more of a guy that could get guys off of you. When Florida State's offensive line was horrid, whenever defenders were in the backfield, he'd be able to get guys off. He wasn't a home run hitter guy. It'd be mainly probably going back to a guy like Dalvin Cook. I mean, this kid just goes, and he had a really good night overall, too. If I'm going over here to some of the stat lines for him, 14 attempts on 91 yards and a touchdown there. He had a 27 yard run as well for his longest of the evening against a good defense with Wake Forest, a top 25 defense in the country. Samuel Singleton said, "No, sir. I'm going to run 6.5 average on your ass." And he sure did. That was a really impressive night from Samuel Singleton. And I think we're going to see a lot more of number 28. He deserved it. And I mean, he looked really good. Going over to Tommy Castellanos, like I said, I thought he played well. 271 yards on air, 12 of 16, touchdown, no interceptions as well. I know that was kind of scary part there where it looked like he almost could have fumbled there, but he was down, which was good. And I think the biggest thing for us to monitor as well was him taking care, or actually just more of him seeing how full go he would be, how 100% he would look after getting that rest, which mainly, I know he took that shot to the head against Stanford, but mainly I was looking at his lower body just to see, if he was going to go back to what we saw against Alabama, whenever he looked like he was just nonstop slingshot, bye-bye, and make some moves. And since that Kent State game when he got injured and it's a lower leg injury, I don't know if it's his left leg or where else, but you could tell it hindered him. And when you're hindering a guy that likes to use his legs and run as a dual threat quarterback, then that changes a lot of the philosophy that Gus Malzahn is going to want to do with the offense and the scheme and the different things that they can do to get down the field. And so you could definitely see how that changed. And too, going into that Stanford game, I mean, it was a complete mess. It was awful. That Stanford, you had flashbacks from last year, 2024, where that offense was disgusting to watch. I mean, it was awful. And that's what you saw against Stanford. I don't think he was definitely dealing with some things. So I think that rest certainly helped him. We saw him rush and get that touchdown tonight as well. But I thought Tommy played very well. And I know there was a lot of chatter over the week, and I think it was just a bye week conversation since everybody's kind of bored. And also too, it's an easy time to be mad at a lot of things and just see who else could step in and maybe, get things back in order for Florida State to turn things around. And people were talking about, we don't want to see Kevin Sperry in there, the true freshman and such. We talked about it on the show on Wednesday. I didn't think there was any need for all that. Tommy has shown that he is your biggest leader on this team. You need a guy like that can rally around. People were griping, and I was griping about it last year, where, DJ Uiagalelei, he was not a leader. He was not a leader, he was not a vocal guy, whatever you want to call it. Definitely wasn't on the field as a leader, not like a guy like Jordan Travis, where he kind of kept to himself, didn't talk much, and then he showed you on the field. DJ Uiagalelei was not any of that. He wasn't a leader. And then you bring in Tommy Castellanos, who is a complete 180, and he's a guy that shows you on the field, and also too is going to be very vocal, very hands-on as well. And he put up a photo this last week of him and just Mike Norvell up on his social media, and I think that sent a message to the team that we are going to rally behind our head coach, and that's just the way that's going to be. And sure enough, tonight, I mean, we saw that going over the defensive side of the ball. Great performance there from Tony White's side. You got to give him props there. We've been very harsh on him. All of us have been. Everybody in the comments, I'm sure, has, as it should. That the product on the field was bad on that side of the ball, but it was really cool to see whenever Earl Little Jr. got his interception that he went over and gifted that ball to Mike Norvell, and you saw Edwin Joseph going and dancing and celebrating with Mike. And we go back to the last game against Stanford where Mike Norvell went over to Edwin Joseph. They got into it. It got a little nasty there. I think some words were said for sure. And then, you bounce back into your next game and you see these guys flash around making some plays. Edwin Joseph made some plays tonight as well. And I just thought that was something that, the ESPN broadcast was able to capture. And I thought, that defensive performance was great. And this team played for Mike tonight. I know a lot of people, and including myself, and Dustin and Austin aren't here with me this evening, but I think we've shown how transparent we are in our thoughts on Mike and such. But you can't argue though that this team did not play for their head coach tonight, and I think that was pretty clear all throughout this evening. Now, going to the defensive side of the ball, I've got some notes here on a few things, like I just mentioned, and that was a great interception, wide open interception there from Earl Little Jr. But I think the defensive line, for the most part, this was the most consistent pressure, I'd say, from your edge rushers and definitely on the inside. I thought they were causing some havoc there for Wake Forest on the offensive side of the ball. They were getting back there. We even had, and this is I don't know if anybody does any lottery tickets or gambles and such. Not saying you need to do so, but if there's a big Powerball going on tomorrow, or I don't know when that comes out, I would get your lottery tickets, go ahead and write down your numbers, maybe put number 10 on there because James Williams, he got a sack. Breaking news alert. What a time to be alive. The stars have aligned. I'm just saying, go and get your lottery tickets placed. James Williams got a sack tonight. Amari Williams, too, was at the end of the game, but Amari Williams also got into the backfield as well. But for the most part, Jabril Rawls is Jabril Rawls. I tweeted earlier in the game, Florida State needs 10 more Jabril Rawls on the defensive side of the ball, and they'll be the best defense in the country. Jabril was making plays all over the place. He also got that fumble recovery as well. He plays with a lot of physicality, a lot of tenacity, and also, too, a lot of discipline, because there was some times tonight where Wake Forest was trying to get a little chippy there after plays, and I always try to monitor guys just to see where they're at in their mentals, because it's easy to slip up there and you either say something the ref catches you, or, of course, you can get physical with it. But, he gets caught up in those situations just because he plays with that physicality, and he's not the biggest guy. So he's the one that's probably instigating a little bit, but he played with discipline tonight, and also, too, just across the board was one of your best defenders in the game. The Desir twins, I know I'm seeing a few comments in here about the Desirs. I mean, they've been flashes since the very beginning of the season, and it's pretty obvious that you're going to see a lot more playing time from those guys, as they deserve it. And those are guys going to be vying for potential starting spots going into next season. Jerry Wilson, I know there's a comment in here as well about Jerry Wilson. Yeah, it was great to see Jerry. Dude, am I the only one where I feel like Jerry Wilson could lead the entire country, maybe in football as a whole, in potential pick sixes? This guy has so many different opportunities to get that ball. Either he's got it in his hands and he could take it back, or he's just going to obliterate the guy, which he did both tonight. He had one where just couldn't come down with it, and he would have brought it back. He could have just walked into the end zone practically, drops that, but then also, too, he just completely crushes a wide receiver for Wake Forest and doesn't allow anything for Wake Forest there. And could have probably certainly been another pick six, but he's had so many opportunities this season. But he's also, too, had a rough season so far, I would say, and we've been critical on him. It was good to see him have a bounce back game for himself. And yeah, I thought he was he had probably his most solid game, I would say, this season, outside of what you had from him in that game against Alabama. One thing to note here, I don't know if you guys noticed this. So, of course, Samuel Singleton started there at running back, but your starting wide receivers are now Deuce Robinson, no shocker there. LaWayne McCoy, that's not too much of a shocker. Then Mekhi Danzy, and yeah, you could say maybe not a shocker there because he has been, a starter a few times this season. No Squirrel White, though, which is pretty interesting to me. Yes, we did see him as your starting punt returner, but did not see him in this starting lineup. I know that he's fully healthy. He's good to go 100%. But FSU, Gus Malzahn, Mike Norvell, they feel like this right now, this rotation is what they want to go with moving forward, because they did have a lot of time. I believe, we were listening to the ACC network, and some of those announcers met with Mike, and, there was a lot of things that they worked through during this bye week of, personnel, understanding who might fit best and who might be your better performers. And it seems like they certainly made these adjustments. I think nobody was expecting for Samuel Singleton to be a starter. Did we expect for him, maybe, to play? Yeah, but you still had questions of, how much you would see of Samuel Singleton. We didn't expect him to be a starter. And man, did Florida State pick the right guy tonight? Outside of, now I want to look how well Florida State was disciplined tonight, because I don't know about you guys, but I was starting to get a little bit nervous about FSU's, lack of discipline whenever I would think that was LaWayne McCoy, who had a false start on second down on the first drive and couldn't get anything going there. Penalties, 4 of 45 yards for the Seminoles. And then tonight, 11 penalties for almost 100 yards at 93 for Wake Forest. The Demon Deacons, they They did not. And now I'm going to give credit to Florida State because they played this game and dominated the game offensively and defensively across the board. And they were the most disciplined team here. Getting only 4 penalties here, you'll take that all day long. And you had a late one there with Charles Lester at the very end. Is what it is. But Wake Forest, man, that was some ugly ball from them all across offensively, defensively, and probably most importantly on the discipline side, which hurt them in a lot of big plays of stopping those or making big plays, bringing them back. It kind of hurt them in a lot of different ways. And that was just a bad performance by them. And they're going to have some major disappointment there. But Wake Forest did not play some clean football whatsoever this evening. Looking at some more stats. Let's see. Yeah, we did see, one thing too we need to note on, if we're talking some depth chart stuff, we did see Brock Glenn go in before Kevin Sperry, whereas beforehand, earlier in the season, we saw Kevin Sperry going in before Brock Glenn. We actually saw Kevin Sperry go in against Stanford there, and last minute run there on the offense to try to, get down to the end zone, which they actually ended up doing. But it was pretty interesting to me that Brock Glenn got in there before Kevin Sperry and this one. Not that it was any kind of, a crucial game or something. This was, this game was dead. It was over. And, maybe Gus wanted to just have Brock get in there and get some burn and get some time, as well as he hasn't had much since earlier in September. But yeah, Brock Glenn over Kevin Sperry. We'll see. We'll see if we get kind of any word on that going into Clemson week, which we'll discuss that here in just a minute. If you guys have any topics or questions, I'll pop them up here on the screen. I've been talking like 16 minutes straight, but I love it. I mean, this was a great win for Florida State on this side. I understand, and I do understand that this is, and I think about this stuff all the time. I mean, you beat Cal last year, in a very close game. And then you went on that run where you can't get an ACC win to save your life. And, back in the day, beating Wake Forest, this is how it should be. That's the thing, you got to take both sides here. I think, oh gosh, wow, huge performance by Florida State. Absolutely domination. But also too, this is how it should be. Florida State should be whooping ass against Wake Forest on a yearly basis. It should be over by halftime. Every FSU fan will say that, every alumni of the team. Absolutely. You should always beat the living hell out of Wake Forest. It's Wake Forest. The talent level, the resources, et cetera, et cetera. You're on a different level than Wake Forest. And this should always be almost a cupcake game for you. At least that's how it was back in the day. And so I understand where Florida State's at. Finally got an ACC win, the first one of the season. But now, could this be a momentum driver for the rest of the season? Absolutely. You're going to go face Clemson this upcoming weekend. It's going to be another night game for FSU. This is going to be a night one, though, in Death Valley. I'm actually going to be up there for that this upcoming weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. But we saw that game earlier today. Although if you had YouTube TV, probably pretty tough like I was trying to find any stream possible. But yeah, the Blue Devils beat them 46-45. And now the Clemson Tigers 3-5 on the season, which I don't think nobody was expecting this to happen. And Cade Klubnik not to have the season that he had, or that defensive line, that offensive line that is always highly touted, definitely coming into this season, the talent across the board that, the Clemson always prides himself on developing from year one, from the high school talent level. This is, going to be a pretty fun game, in my opinion. I mean, I know, Clemson put up 45 points and such, but, things aren't clean. It wasn't pretty at all for Dabo Swinney. We saw Dabo Swinney going off. I don't know if you guys saw that clip, but he was going off on his defense. I mean, he did not like that performance whatsoever. And we did see what Florida State did against a top 25 ranked defense in the country with Wake Forest. I understand there's 7 points there, but almost practically a shutout there. But keeping them to 7 points and a touchdown was really impressive from Florida State's defense. But then if you look at Florida State's offense, putting up 42 against that defense, I mean, Clemson's defense got some issues, man. They really do. And it's going to be a pretty interesting game up there all the way in Death Valley next Saturday night.
All right, now that I have some time to breathe here a little bit, I'm trying to go through some of y'all's comments. What are y'all's where are y'all's mentals at with Mike? Because we saw that on the sideline, the team going over to him, embracing him, practically celebrating and such. And, like I said earlier, this could be a really good momentum driver for this team that is very much needed because there is still a handful of games left to end the season, and you're still vying and trying to get, reach that bowl game and maybe even further in that win column than that and 6 wins. But where does this change anything on your stance with Mike after just one game? I think if it were to have been a closer game and Florida State squeezed out on top against Wake Forest, you probably are still in that same realm about Mike. And I'm just kind of putting it out there. But for it to be this type of win where both sides of the ball are meshing and clicking well, the discipline's on point as well, and you see the offense doing what it was able to do, and the defense, I think what stands out the most is certainly that defense and what they were able to put together, putting pressure there on the quarterbacks, getting to the backfield and doing what they need to do. Does that do anything for you, or are you kind of still in that same thought process of, Mike, it is what it is. Wait till the end of the year, then you move on from Mike, even if he were to win these next games. Because if we're going to look at it right now, this schedule, you go to Clemson this upcoming Saturday night, which is at a 7 p.m. kickoff. Then you're at home in Doak against Virginia Tech. We don't have a kickoff time yet for that. We'll get that on Monday, I do believe. And then you're at NC State, which is a Friday night game, which, you're going to have, we always have nightmares of Florida State playing in Raleigh. It just is what it is. It's an awful place to play. And Florida State has the worst luck going up there. Ugh. I've been up there too. I was younger at the time, but some nasty fans. Maybe they've changed, but I highly doubt it. It's NC State. And then, of course, in Gainesville, which, the Gators tried to keep it close there today, and Jacksonville against the Georgia Bulldogs, but they could not pull that off against them. But, there's still a handful of games here in that Clemson one. Still, nonetheless, Dabo Swinney does get his team to play against Florida State. Kim is saying here on YouTube, keep Mike till the end of the year and evaluate then. No reason to waste any more money. Stan says he can't develop at an FSU standard. Doc is saying if he wins out and they continue to play really well, then with the money, I feel you have to keep him. Dwayne's saying here on Facebook, it's year 6. He needs to go. And yeah, I mean, I get all these points here, all these points. And I don't think you can we can't get too crazy after one game like this. Now, is it satisfying? Absolutely. It's great. And you want to see your team, of course, win. But then at the long term of things, you're looking in the future and such what Florida State needs to do to be successful on a year-to-year basis, which is always vying for an ACC championship and reaching that, college football playoff. Then, you got to evaluate all these things, man. Can't have recency bias. This is a good comment here from Justin on Facebook saying, I don't forget the terrible showings, lack of development, and recruitment for Norvell. Just like I don't forget what Jimbo did. Sorry, never will root for Jimbo either. And like Stan said, and I was mentioning earlier, it is Wake and it is expected. And I fully agree. And you gotta think too, and you gotta hope Mike in that same mental capacity there where this is how it should be. You should be beating the hell out of Wake Forest. This should never be a game. This should always be slotted whenever you get your schedule release and you see where Wake Forest is at. You're like, ooh, this is a good time where maybe we could see some of those 2 deep guys that Kevin Sperry get into the game. Ooh, nice. Maybe we'll get some more of some of these younger defensive linemen, some Kevin Wynn in there potentially. You look when you get the schedule release, Wake Forest is one of those teams. Cal is always going to be in there as well. Virginia Tech until they get James Franklin coming up is what is. Stanford. I mean, we don't need to go back to that. We've moved on. We've had our bye week as well mentally, and we've moved on from that. Yeah, But yeah, I mean, that's an ACC win for you, for Florida State. Offensively, defensively, I thought it was a strong showing. I think, though, Wake Forest had a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad penalties, some crushing penalties too as well that took away some of their big plays in the game that would probably gotten them a little bit closer and maybe given them some momentum. But you're not going to take away what Florida State was able to do this evening against Wake. Earl Little Jr. was your leading tackler with 7 total tackles, 3 solo tackles, and his interception as well. Shaheem Brown, I thought Shaheem Brown's a pretty interesting conversation to have. I think we'll probably have that. I'll probably speak with on Monday about that with Dustin on our show at 12:30. Make sure you guys are subscribed down below so you get notified when we do go live. Then hit that bell as well. I'll put it up on here for you guys to remember. But we go live on Monday and we'll be live on Wednesday as well. But Shaheem Brown's a pretty interesting conversation to have because I thought that he's been one of those players that have put himself. I understand he did allow that last touchdown there. Is what it is. Sucks. Didn't get the shutout. Sucks. But I think Shaheem Brown has actually improved and has helped you with this defense. And to be honest with you, as being a leader on the field, it's been solid. And he's also been a guy that's holding guys accountable, pulling guys away too from where they could get in some of these skirmishes and cause penalties and such. And I've been noticing that from number one, which has been good to see. But he's your second top leading tackler on the defensive side of the ball. Blake Nicholson was there with 4 tackles, 3 solo tackles on the night. Daryl Jackson had 3 total tackles. Elijah Herring actually had 4 total tackles. And a lot of sacks here. AJ Cottrell and James Williams, I believe, are going to share that sack. I believe that was both of them there on that play. I might be wrong, but they get a sack there. This is also too. I'm trying to see. Like I said, Amari Williams got back there and got him one man. Drell Desir, which I thought was a phenomenal play there. He got to the backfield and got his sack as well. But a lot of defensive players were out on the field this evening. That's what happens when you beat the living crap out of a team like that. That is exactly what happens. But yeah, that's a great start to November. That is a good start to November. Like I said, Florida State's going to go and face off against Clemson this upcoming or next weekend, Saturday night. I'll be there on hand for that one. That is a 7 p.m. kick on the ACC network. And then the next few games is Virginia Tech at NC State on a Friday night. And then you are at Florida in the Swamp on Thanksgiving weekend. But I think that's going to do it for me, guys. It's a late one here for us. And appreciate y'all always tuning in and hanging out. If you don't mind, smack that like button down below. Appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in this evening. If you also, too, want to join us, we'll be live Monday after Mike Norvell's press conference. We'll be live at 12:30 here on this YouTube channel. So if you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button and come join us. And then we're always live on Wednesdays, given our big quick hitters of the week, some injury updates as well from Mike Norvell. And then, too, we're going to jump into a game preview between Florida State and Clemson. Appreciate y'all, guys. Enjoy the rest of y'all's evenings. Florida State snaps the 406-day streak of not winning an ACC game. What a time to be alive. And most importantly, James Williams got a sack. Y'all have a great rest of y'all's evening. Peace.